Hey everybody, this is Jordan with the Crohn's Veteran Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I am so grateful and so honored to have a very special guest with me. Um, she is an alumni of Michigan State. She is a former owner of a wholesale and retail bakery. She's a small business consultant, and she is also my mom. I am welcoming Penny McConnell. How you doing?
Well, thanks for having me, son. This is really a lot of fun already.
Thanks for agreeing to come on. Of course, I know you pretty well, but for the folks that don't know who Penny McConnell is, can you give us some of your background?
Yeah, let's see. I guess I'll start way back growing up in Lansing, Michigan. And then, as you mentioned, I went to, of course, high school in Lansing as well, through all of my schooling in Lansing. And then went to a community college first, which I think you went to a community college for a while too. Didn't you, Jordan, or not?
Briefly.
Briefly. Okay. So anyway, I went to junior college and then on to Michigan State University and graduated Michigan State. And then, let's see, I got married to, gosh, your dad.
Mhm.
And we moved several places. We left Michigan at that point as soon as we got married, and we moved to Colorado. And it was in Colorado that I started attempting to get positions as a writer. That's what I
Mhm.
really wanted to do. And it's still it's parallel there to entrepreneurship and my baking career, actually. So anyway, I started there trying to get writing jobs, which, even then, I'm not going to tell you what year that was, but, even then it was hard to do that. And I don't think in Colorado I landed a writing job at all. I can't recollect getting one. I don't think I got one until we moved from Colorado to the East Coast. We moved to New Jersey, right outside of Manhattan,
Okay.
outside of New York. And that was when I was able to secure my first writing job, which was, just big fun for me, even though it really wasn't that great a job, but I loved it. And so we did that. And then I guess what I'd say my first real professional writing job was in uh, Emmaus, Pennsylvania, which is just a little town near Allentown, Pennsylvania, right in that triangle area.
Mhm.
And that was Rodale Press. And people may know Rodale Press from things like Runner's World, Organic Gardening. Um, and I think I think that there's several magazines now that they do around running, but it's a health related publishing company. And I wrote for them. I wrote chapters for them. I did lots of very, very fun things.
Cool.
From there, we moved to Reston, Virginia, where, of course, you know, lots of things happened there, including, I guess that would have been your birth, right? Your birth and Morgan's. And I worked for yet another publishing company, and that was a professional job too, as a advertising copywriter. And I left that job, I think, after maybe about 5 years, right after I'd actually given birth to you guys. And I left in the position of senior copywriter with a couple people under me. I loved it.
Wow.
Uh-huh.
And so and
And
so
then that's when I sort of started switching careers.
Right. Yeah. I was to say. I know a little bit of the background, the history of, um, how, your bakery came to be, but for our audience, out there, talk about, what prompted you to, to come up with the bakery, and and a little bit of, some of your successes with it.
Okay, well, I'm a lifelong baker. I'm one of those people, it was always a hobby of mine. I've got hundreds of cookbooks and I love to pour through those. I've always loved that kind of thing. When I was a little girl and people would ask me what did I want to be when I grew up, I would always say I want to be a baker. you know, and I loved all that. I would do, there's a book that turned into a movie. I think it was a book first that was called Julia and Julia, was a, you know, Julia Child, and this girl is working through all of her recipes. And I was that same person. I would take a cookbook, you know, a standard type of cookbook, and I would work through the in you know, the all during doing all the pastry kind of work through that. Then I ended up going to pastry school in Bethesda, Maryland. And I was still working as an advertising copywriter during this whole period of time, you see, and then, but just loving the craft. And there really are not a lot of people in my family that own small businesses, but there are lots of people in my family, or just instrumental people in my family, that have what I'd call an entrepreneurial spirit.
Right, definitely.
Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah, it's sort of that. And so I always loved that. I loved that, you know, I'm going to make a way out of no way type approach to things. Right. You know, if I can't find a job, I'm going to make a job. Especially my grandfather was definitely like that. And, you know, when I was a little girl, I followed him around because he owned lots of property, and he put a garden behind every house that he owned. So, you know, I remember like maybe a half a dozen houses that he owned, and he put gardens behind each one of those homes. And then he tended each one of those gardens, if you can believe that, and left the produce for those families. And I just thought, you know, it was such an independent, lovely thing to do. Definitely. That and somehow he was so self-motivated to do that. Nobody's going to say, get up and go tend the gardens, you know. And I can just remember as a little girl with my sisters kind of following after him like little ducklings, right, going to help him with these gardens. So to sort of, you know, that's sort of the sort of the spirit that I saw in my own family, right? And so at some point, it was after I gave birth to you guys, I found out that I was having twins, and then gave birth to you guys and tried to go back to work full time. And I realized that that wasn't going to work. So I started freelancing for them. But that is also when I got the seed of the idea that this is the perfect time to do my own business, because I needed that kind of flexibility as well. So, so actually that's what I did. Just completely never thinking it wasn't going to work, or never thinking anything other than excitement. Right. Right.
That's all. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, would you, like looking back, were there some things that you think that you know, should have been kind of focusing on, you know, like that kind of the beginning and stuff like that, you know, beyond the excitement, or do you kind of like, are you kind of pretty happy with, you know, how things were then?
You know, Jordan, it's certainly not the case through my whole career as an entrepreneur, but I wouldn't change anything about that period of time. Cool. You know, it was pretty golden, if you see what I'm saying. It was pretty darn golden, because I was, of course, married, you know, to your father, Al, and he was very handy, right? And so when I decided to, you know, that's right, he, you know, in that county, we were living in Reston, Virginia, which is, what is the county, Jordan? My memory fails me.
Fairfax. It was
Fairfax, exactly. Fairfax County. In that county, they already had cottage laws. So you could actually set up your, you know, if your business is small, you could set up your kitchen, your commercial kitchen in your home.
Oh, wow.
You see, and Al and I had already bought a house, a townhouse. And so Al literally changed our kitchen into a commercial kitchen.
I didn't know that.
Did you know that? Yes,
no,
he did.
I
mean, we traveled across to, I can't remember exact, maybe back to Pennsylvania, and bought my first commercial oven at an auction.
That's so cool.
He completely refurbished that oven, and then literally built because of course there are, you know, certain specs, of course, that the health department expects, and all of that has to be done before you can get a health department license.
Of course.
So he did all of that. And
wow, that's pretty doggone impressive. So.
Exactly. And I came up with, of course, the name Penny's Pastries. And Al, I wish I had actually brought some of my little props, but you know, we had really cute signage and everything was just absolutely adorable. And I started selling cakes at farmers markets. That's how I started Penny's Pastries in Fairfax County, Virginia, Reston, Virginia. And you know, we had beautiful farmers markets, like all sorts of things were being sold at, right?
Right.
And that's where I started. And I was, you know, the first day I can still remember being so excited doing, and I also did shows like Christmas shows, you know, like arts and craft type shows as well with these packaged cakes. And I have to say, every single time I sold out. Every single time.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, you know, Mom. So.
And so I can remember Mom and you know, Nana and all my sisters, your aunts came to help me because the production was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it was, to me, a very exciting time. Beautifully packaged little cakes inspired by Grandpa Barnes. Right.
Yep.
And so that's how I started my business. Then we ended up moving to and then that morphed into a retail store. And I always said if I ever got a chance again, I would not open a retail store, but I'd do a wholesale bakery specializing in cookies. And I got that opportunity to do that when we moved from Reston, Virginia to Austin, Texas. And so I opened another bakery in Austin in the early 90s, still under the name Penny's Pastries, this time as a wholesale bakery specializing in cookies.
Very cool.
And then that business grew large. That's when I started getting more kind of business life lessons. And but that business also was the one that sort of changed me from just a product-centered entrepreneur, or what we call a technician, into a business person. And I had that business for about 18 years and sold it in 2005, 2006, somewhere right around there.
And for the people, you know, listening, you know, you have some, you know, some pretty cool experiences with that. You know, can you tell the audience, you know, about,
I did, without a doubt.
Yeah, like, you know, like being, would you mind telling us a little bit about being a Food Network?
A Food Network, absolutely. That was definitely one of the high points. I loved that. That was probably maybe about, I'm going to think 5 years into the business, something like that. By that time, we were pretty much doing Austin. You know, we had account. We remember we were primarily a wholesale bakery.
Yep.
So we sold into retails and filled cases in retail bakeries
all over the city.
At least all over the city, if not half the state. But then, I mean, it got to the point where really Penny's Pastry started doing the state. And then, of course, we did the, you know, in-flight service for Southwest Airlines, all of their in-flight sweet goods business. We did Starbucks, you know, and that was it's kind of funny because those was kind of the early days of Starbucks. It was actually, what it was the expansion. It was the expansion of Starbucks.
Wow, that's really interesting.
So we ended up doing some really big accounts too. But I had also, I wanted to say, I did have some really big learning during that part too. It's hard to tell the whole story and, you know, collapse the whole story into a few minutes. But
yeah, well, definitely. Well, of course, you know, our audience, you know, if they're interested in learning more about you, you know, we'll, you know, give them some contact information so they can reach out to you and learn more. And
they can always go to my website too.
Exactly. And so, and we'll give them. We'll provide that too. And so, so now I guess to transition a little bit. And so I wanted to talk about, you know, of course, you know, around Crohn's Veteran, the Crohn's Veteran podcast. And so I want to talk about Crohn's disease and inflammatory bowel, you know, diseases and stuff a little bit. And so you yourself have what would you say, like IBS a little bit?
I would say I have IBS.
And so
I have IBS. I've lived with it all my life.
Right. And so, talk about, what it's like, because I don't think on the show that we've actually interviewed anybody with, that we would, classify as IBS. We've had, folks like, CJ or other people we've interviewed with ulcerative colitis, or myself or Renika, and some other people, we've interviewed with Crohn's disease, but IBS is something unique. And so, what do your kind of symptoms look like? What does your kind of lifestyle with IBS look like? And, and maybe what are some things that you try to do to manage that?
Yeah. Oh God, I don't even know where to start with it. I've had it for so long. My mother had the problem. Several of my sisters have the problem. It's, I guess in terms of attempting to manage it, when I was younger, I didn't manage it well at all. And I guess that doesn't surprise you either with something like Crohn's. It takes a certain maturity to manage these things, because there are restrictions really. On what you do, when you do it, what you eat, what you don't eat, that you stay hydrated. It's a whole dance. And like, well, you can do all of that and still have serious problems.
Exactly. Yep.
And so, I can remember Mom saying, I could drink a sip of water and it could turn into a problem. I could drink a sip of water at the wrong time.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
that yes. And that just sends that's that day.
Right. Yeah, I'm chuckling because I can empathize. So.
Yes, exactly. So I guess, the things that I remember the most, I've just always had problems with my stomach. I've had, of course, I've been diagnosed with irritable bowel syndrome type thing. It's like an upper and lower GI series that they give you to finally diagnose, and then they tell you what to do and what not to do, or at least they attempt to give you some suggestions around that. But there's also, I guess what I'd say is, we have to manage it, and it's not easy. So,
like, what would you say
when I was younger? Go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry to interrupt you. I was going to say, like, so what would you say are some, like, some foods that you try to avoid?
I try to avoid, of course, anything that's fatty. I don't eat. I very, very rarely eat fried food. Period. I don't eat things like fast food, hamburger type meals. I'm not saying I never eat them, but I really do watch it, and I'm not surprised when that sets up a problem. And especially, it's a whole balance act, right?
Right.
Especially like if I haven't eaten enough during the day, and then I end up I would never go to a fast food place for a hamburger anyway. It would be more like a mid-tier type restaurant. Because my stomach just can't, I just can't have that kind of food. I can't tolerate it. No, that would just be, that's suicide for me. So I would end up going to like a mid-tier restaurant quietly. Stress is not a good thing for it either. So there's a whole, almost a Zen thing I would have to do before I went in to have this burger. And then sometimes that would work, and sometimes it won't. So I watch red meat in general. I watch fried food. I watch dairy. Any of those inflammatory type things like that. I watch all of that all the time. And actually, probably at this point of my life, I'm better controlled right now than I would say, than I've been in my entire life. So I went through, in terms of the pendulum swinging, I went through when I was younger, like in my teens, when I first started dating your father. I can remember him saying something like, "Do you want to hang out at the record store?" This was this was after a date. This is like during a date. We'd gone out to get something to eat, probably one of those fatty burgers. Right. We'd probably gone to get one of those. And then he said, "Do you want to go?" Because kids used to go to the record store and hang out. And so I said, "Do you want to go?" And I said, "I'm going to need to find a bathroom right now." Do you see? I still can remember that, because that's so embarrassing.
Yep. I mean, and and the struggle is real for a lot of people with inflammatory bowel. I mean, the people just don't
Oh
know.
God.
People just
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, people
Because
people.
IBS is a cramping thing. You see what I'm saying? It's a cramping thing, and there is no later with it.
No,
there is no later.
Yeah, that urgency. That's the word. That's the
That's
word.
right.
That's the
It
word that
is
people
going
use.
down, and it is cramping down so hard, is so problematic
Yeah,
that the only thing that you could possibly do at that point is go to the bathroom.
Yeah, in a full run type thing.
In a full trot.
Yeah,
that's exactly right.
In a full sprint while you're trying to squeeze things at the same time.
While you're trying to still seem normal because you just started dating this person, and you're on your first date, and you've almost broken into a full run, and you're almost like sweating. so it's not a pretty picture. And so I remember that, but the way I live my life now works, I'm going to say, Jordan, 80% of the time, but it's a whole thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it's nothing to play with.
Right. And being your son and stuff, I'm somewhat aware of the regimen and stuff, and and it's that's that. And
you remember the years that I did not control it well.
Right.
You remember those years.
And I think just I think you kind of be kind to yourself, for all that kind of stuff, and just and even on days that because that's something I struggle with is days that we do everything right, and that 20%,
that's exactly right.
And so it's just knowing that you did everything right, and still knowing that you're treating your body well, even if it's even if you have symptoms that you can't control.
That's right. And I don't know about you, but sometimes there's just things I also didn't know. I didn't know too much sugar was causing the problem. Do you see what I'm saying? Or I didn't know sugar was causing that problem. I knew I was probably eating too much sugar, but I didn't know that it had any connection at the time. Right. I didn't know things like dairy. I just didn't. And so a lot of these things I learned the hard way. I kind of, I wonder if you cut back on that. I wonder if that would make it, it was that kind of thing. I can't do a whole lot of just like snacking, like sitting and eating like potato chips or
none of that stuff works. I mean,
none of that works.
So
none of that works.
So I'm curious, and so you having IBS, and so what was your thinking? This is kind of a long time ago now, but when you found out that I had Crohn's disease, or I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, like what was kind of your thinking? Because I was just talking about this with somebody else, and they asked me this, and so I was kind of curious, at that time, I guess in 1995,
it was. I mean, I can remember when you, of course, were in Las Vegas when you were first diagnosed, and I can remember Al calling me to tell me, and at first they didn't know what you had. They hadn't completely diagnosed you, so they were thinking it could be anything from cancer to Crohn's. Did you know that?
I don't think I did know that.
Yeah, and so I was out of my mind. I was just completely out of my mind. I which has happened a lot in your little life because because it's just so hard and so sad, and it's you're so sick, and of course what a mom wants to always do is make you better.
Right.
You just wanted to go away. You wanted to go away.
And Crohn's is a chronic condition. So
it's a chronic condition. It's not going to go away. It's a terrible feeling. It's a terrible feeling. And then of course I didn't know what Crohn's was. I knew I was like relieved that it wasn't that it wasn't cancer, but I didn't know Crohn's. I didn't know this chronic disease called Crohn's. I didn't know this thing. And then I felt, guilty too, because I knew that a whole lot of it had to be because of me. Because I mean, I have similar problems. So
do the doctors, so did the doctors explain to you at the time, kind of what if any information were you given about me, then, or dad?
Jordan, I really don't, I don't really feel like I got any. I remember going to, and I can't blame the whole thing on them, because I was crazed. You see what I'm saying? So I don't know what they were saying to me really, but I don't remember getting any information. I don't remember getting any material. I don't remember. All I remember is, let's say that Al called me on a Tuesday. I was on a flight on Wednesday.
I remember that.
To Las Vegas. Do you remember that?
I do.
And you were maybe about 14.
Yep.
You were about 14 years old, and so cute, and so sick, and kind of saying, I'm gonna miss Halloween. I remember that you said that to me, and then I was thinking, well, I'll get him like a little one of those little plastic pumpkins.
Yeah.
And even the kids in the hospital, they were letting some of the kids go around the hospital, but of course you couldn't.
No, I remember that too.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
So it was all, the whole thing has just been, nothing has broken my heart more than that period. And then when you got really, really sick.
The second time, kind of.
The second time.
Right. And so, but
that was so sad.
It is.
And then I felt like that whole period of time, everything was wrong. Do you see what I'm saying? But by that time you were kind of a man. I can only do so much. You know what I'm saying? It's been a journey. I think anybody who loves anybody that has Crohn's colitis, any kind of chronic disease, it as much as it impacts you, and we know that you're the one with it, so needless to say, you have the bigger problem, and it ripples into so many different areas of your life, and it does the same thing to mine. You say something like you're going to travel to you guys are going to move, and I immediately go into almost panic mode.
Right.
Because I just fear that's too much, and he's not, it's going to just, what's going to, it's a whole cycle for me. So my job, I have decided, we've been dealing with this for a long time, right?
Right.
And my job is one, instead of just sitting in worry, is what can I do to help? What can I do to help? In terms of even, that's what I ask myself now all the time, like the food. I know food better than most people on the planet, right?
Right.
And I love the whole notion of cooking and food and preparation and, that whole thing. And so I just started thinking, is there any way I can create a program for them? Or, do you see what I mean?
Right. Well, that's, I'm that, well, of course, thank you. And, for everything that you do. But that's where I get that from too, is that, I'm, solutions, have a solution, mindset.
Exactly.
So
we don't like to wallow.
No,
we don't like to wallow in the issue. We try to look for the solution to that. We can't cure Crohn's right now. We certainly can't. But even I want to say, even with your podcast, that's why I love it, because you might not be able to cure it, but so much of what you're doing is toward that end. And at the same time right now, to help and support people that are going through life and they want to make a contribution and they want to have full lives, and they carry this weight with them, this problem with Crohn's and colitis, right?
Right.
So I think you guys are instrumental in that, and that's why I so support this effort too.
Well, thank you. Well, cool. Well, I wanted to kind of go back to just entrepreneurship just a little bit. I want seeing as you coach people and help people with their own small businesses and stuff. And so, are there any kind of patterns or any kind of tips or advice or common pitfalls that some of the folks that you talk to can avoid?
I guess what I would say to that is, in a way, entrepreneurship kind of mimics Crohn's in a way,
Mm.
in that you have to develop it. It takes all of these things take discipline,
Right.
right? And patience.
Right.
And what I see in my clients so often is not having those two things. We're all crazy passionate,
Right.
right? But we've got to get a couple things right here. We've got to breathe and slow down. The other thing is, when you have decided that you are going to make money by your own hand, it only makes sense. You wouldn't do it with anything else. If you decided to be a tennis player, you'd probably hire somebody to help you really learn the game and really develop the strategies around it and how the game is played and what the history of, you would do that. And I don't understand why people don't do that with business.
Mm. Like reaching out,
There's
finding
not enough.
mentors.
There's not enough study of the fundamentals of business, because if you could understand the fundamentals, then you have the ability to tweak them and make them your own. You have the ability to build creative strategies, but first you have to understand the fundamentals, the rudiments of just business. And it doesn't really make any difference from corporate structures all the way down to mom and pop sole proprietorships. There are rules that go all the way through those, that if you knew that part and you were willing to work those, it would show up in your revenue, in the money that you actually keep. So I would say, just like Crohn's and colitis, you have to kind of learn what does work, have the patience and discipline to stop doing what doesn't work, which, these things are easy to say, but I know from living, they're not easy to do. But that's where success comes in. That's where success comes in, and that's what I would say about entrepreneurship. I of course love it. And I think people that have chronic problems, all sorts of problems, right? Owning your own business is like the answer to a lot of that, because you need flexibility. When you're in the middle of a flare, it's going to be really hard to go to work.
Right. It is.
I mean, to work for somebody where you need to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning.
To me, just being able to work with, like a chronic condition like Crohn's or colitis or IBS, it's just a miracle. It's a blessing.
It's a miracle.
Unto itself.
And we all have, anybody that has this issue, we all have our stories, don't we? Right? You're in the middle of a meeting, or you're the actually presenter of something. Or you've got all these different roles that and you go, oh my God, my stomach has just given out on me. Right. We've all been there.
We have. And so, there's so much respect to everybody that tries. That tries, tries
without a doubt. I think it's huge.
I think it's huge too.
I think it's absolutely huge. Anybody that says, I have a problem, whatever that problem is, whatever that issue is, I have an issue and I'm going to show up anyway. Do you see? And then I'm going to be disciplined to say, I need to stop doing these 4 things, institute these 4 over here, and move forward.
Right. And just know
that's right. And plan A is not working, not to just throw the whole thing out, just to say, let me sit back for a second, or call somebody who might have more information than I do, or whatever, and then move into plan B.
Right. And then and if you fall off a wagon on plan A or plan B, be kind to yourself and then get back on the wagon.
Without a doubt. Because there's no point in beating yourself up.
Nope. Because we're all
that doesn't do anything.
Nope.
We are human.
We are human. And so
we are human.
But cool. Well, I think this is a really fun conversation, Mom. And I think we're gonna wrap it up a little bit. But before we do, just any parting words of wisdom, for people with the IBS out there, or any aspiring small business owners.
I think it's a real mom thing to say. I don't have my coach hat on right now. I guess I just want to say, when I look at the content, when I look at your content, and when I see the comments, and I see all these people, just working so hard to make a contribution and maybe, leave a legacy and support and help other people. It really does just, it just makes me so proud of what people are willing to do to be productive. So I guess the only thing I would say is, first of all, keep doing that, keep being passionate, right?
Right.
And at the same time, try to develop a business that is at the biggest platform you feel comfortable with. In other words, you have a message for a much bigger audience than you think you probably do.
Mm.
And so, and along with that, of course, comes that patience and discipline. But I would like people to think outside of any kind of preset boundary,
Awesome.
and just know to actually go for, the highest good.
Cool.
I think I'd say.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. That's great advice. One last thing, how, if people want to reach out to you, find you, support you in what you're doing, how can they do so?
Okay, I also have a small coaching business now too. I write business plans and strategy plans and that type of thing. And so my website is Margin Penny. The name of the business is Margin, so the website is Margin, MARGIN Penny, my name, PENNY.com. And
Awesome.
that's my website, and you'll find everything you need.
Cool. Well, and also, if you liked, our conversation today, if you want to support Crohn's veteran, please like and subscribe to our show on all the podcast platforms. Also, like and subscribe us on our Crohn's veteran YouTube channel. You can find us on www.crohnsveteran.com. We have a pretty cool Teespring store with Crohn's and colitis gear on there, so you can check that out and support us. We're working really hard to put out some more gear on there. And again, we just appreciate all your support. We appreciate Penny McConnell for being here, my mom for being here, and thanks for supporting Crohn's veteran.